don't believe that a ceasefire right now we would believe that a ceasefire right now is only going to benefit Hamas.
That was National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby yesterday saying that a ceasefire will only help Hamas. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken announcing at least 33 Americans were killed in Hamas's attack on Israel. President Biden asking Congress to package Ukraine and Israel funding. He's requesting $61.5 billion for Ukraine and $14.3 billion for Israel. California Congressman Mike Garcia releasing a new report outlining GOP demands for aid to Ukraine. He's calling on the Biden administration to provide a full accounting of existing and aid and an exit strategy. Congressman Garcia joins us right now. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And I know this is why 117 Republicans voted against sending more money to Ukraine. They want to know where this money is going. What do you know about that so far?
Yeah, we're still doing the deep dive right now, and I would say that the 117 no votes that we saw just a few weeks ago was just for $300 million, which is a lot of money still, but pales in comparison to the $61 billion footprint that's in this giant supplemental request coming from the White House. So, look, the White House not only owes Congress answers on where is this money going, what is the win strategy, what's the exit strategy, what's the status of the sanctions that we've imposed so far, why haven't we taken the sanctions to the full extent that we need to, but they owe those answers to Congress. We represent the people, and any overseas contingency that has a budget footprint now exceeding $100 billion to date and a request of $61 billion on the table requires that the American taxpayers have buy-in, and their representatives need to know what's going on. And there's a lot of information, but there's nothing really actionable here. There's nothing that indicates that this is going to pay for a victory and not just continue to make Ukraine dependent on American taxpayers for a stalemate or effectively a tie. And that seems to be what's going on the ground here. So we need to hit pause, decouple this Ukraine conversation from the Israeli conversation, which we can all get behind. We understand those numbers. We understand that imperative, and allow that support to move forward quicker than the Ukrainian support at this point.
Well, particularly given the state of affairs where we are, talking about Iran getting more involved in this fight with Israel and this war, when you've got President Biden a couple of weeks ago saying that we're low on ammunitions. I mean, we're sending all of this armament to Ukraine. What about the United States' readiness right now, should this war escalate and require the U.S. to have a bigger footprint?
Yeah, this is one of the 12 questions I ask in this report that I put out. By the way, this report's meant to be a tool for all members of Congress, regardless of their party. And frankly, it's meant to be a tool for this president, the Secretary of Defense, and even Zelensky to be able to answer these questions and hopefully get to a yes if that's what they want. But one of the questions, I believe it's the last one asked, what has the impact been to American capacity and readiness? I know for a fact that there are critical U.S. defense programs that have been put on the back burner as a result of this pull ahead for Ukraine programs. And whether they're doing it on purpose or subconsciously through bad contracting at the Pentagon, the fact is that we have DoD programs, our hypersonic weapons and things of the like, that are frankly being cannibalized at the expense of these pull aheads for Ukraine. So we need to make sure that we're prioritizing our security first. We still have not only Israel, but also Taiwan, who's sitting under the shadow of the dragon and CCP. And we've got to be able to make sure that we can service all of these, especially our own nation's security.
Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom is in China this morning. He is going to be meeting with President Xi Jinping. Apparently, he went to China to discuss climate change, among other issues. Newsom's telling Beijing his state will always be a partner on climate issues, no matter who is president after 2024 in the election. Here's Newsom earlier today. Watch.
My purpose of the trip is to discuss the issue of low-carbon green growth, to talk about strategies, to share ideas and idealism around our transition and our efforts to decarbonize our economy.
Yeah, he also went to Israel, and he said, I wish I was president because I could have more of these meetings. Congressman, your reaction?
Yeah, he's clearly setting the stage for something bigger than just being the governor of California that he's completely run into the ground. The word idealism in that statement is very important. He's going to China, who represents about 30% of the globe's carbon footprint, who has joined the Paris Climate Accords, but not committed to reducing, but rather just slowing down their rate of burn. And in a state that he represents where people are literally leaving because of these EV policies that he's mandated and, $7 a gallon gas and an energy policy that is frankly upside down and backwards. So he didn't mention once the Uyghur genocide or the humanitarian nightmare that's going on within the CCP borders or holding them accountable. This reeks of another, unfortunately, another Democrat leader getting in bed with China, getting us further entangled and dependent on China. Yeah. And it looks like he's setting the stage for a federal run at some point, obviously.
Yeah, I guess he just wanted to go kiss the ring of Xi Jinping before he gets further involved. I'm just wondering if the Democrat leadership has given him the go-ahead to go and do that because, there's Kamala Harris there, right? I mean, how's he going to run for president and overtake her?
I'm sure they have a master plan somewhere, Maria.
Yeah,
they
that's what I
never
think
do
too.
anything without a good plan, so
look,
it's in the background.
Congressman, got to get your take on the speaker race. Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson has been elected the new GOP speaker nominee. The House expected to vote at noon today to determine whether Johnson will, in fact, be the next Speaker of the House. Do you think he's got the 217 votes?
Yeah, I think he's going to get there. He's a good man. He satisfied the Venn diagram. He's not hated by really anyone in the conference. He's going to be a good leader. He's solid on the policy side, a little weak on the fundraising side, but we'll offset that by executing and doing our jobs in Congress. His job has got to be to get the trains back on the rail. Let's get us rolling again. Let's legislate, fulfill the commitment to America. And I'm confident he's going to get the 217 today. We've got to show up, vote, and start working overtime here in the next 3 weeks to make up for time.
What were the pushbacks and the common ground among Republicans? I want to get your take on where the investigations stand in terms of the Biden influence peddling, the weaponization of government, all the things that you all were doing before this speaker vote fight. Was that part of the pushback for those who voted present or did not vote on Johnson?
No, I actually don't think that the presence, there's 3 of them, I believe, that voted present, were tied to anything relative to the weaponization or the impeachment. Some probably just had concerns that they want to take offline with Mike Johnson himself personally, which is great. That's going to happen. There were a few folks not there because there was a big event that some folks chose to go to instead of making this vote. Those folks will be there today.
And
look,
those
we're
investigations?
going to be able to legislate, get the appropriations going, and still do the investigation, still hold this Biden administration accountable, and start peeling the onion and actually getting to what's really going on here at the root with Biden, not just his son, but the implications of Hunter Biden's activities and the clear nexus now to the president is very important. So we're going to have to do all of the above, and we've got a year and a half to demonstrate to the American people that we can not only hold Biden accountable, but we can also legislate and pass these appropriation bills and start cutting at the real existential threat, which is $33 trillion in debt.
And what about those appropriations bills? You've got, what, 25 days left to get the work done? Will you be able to do it by November 17th?
Yeah, we're going to have to figure it out. And if we can't get to November 17th, put a Band-Aid plan in place to make up for lost time here and do it. We have no choice. The Senate's about to jam us with this $100 billion supplemental for Ukraine, Israel, border security, Indo-PACOM, the numbers that we talked about earlier. We need to have those conversations individually, a la carte. The American people deserve that. We owe it to them to have those debates on the floor individually. And for us to do that, we have to pass the appropriation bills, single subject bills, very clear debates, and with most of them cutting at the top line, hopefully getting us to about an 8% cut versus FY23.
Well,
so that's the goal. That's the work in front of us. We've got a lot to do.
It's very concerning when you look at the border to see who has come in that we don't know. The money to the border, what is it going to be used for? Because I made the point earlier that I don't think the border needs money. It needs a policy change.
No, that's right. You're exactly right, Maria, and that's what's scary about the supplemental. I'm not sure where the money is going for Ukraine.
Right.
We certainly could do more for Israel, and the short answer is it's not the money at the border. It is the policy. If we throw money at it, we're just enabling this open border policy from the Biden administration. That actually is working in the wrong direction. So I can argue that you could actually save money if you change the policies, put the Remain in Mexico piece back in, adopt H.R. 2, which is what we've put on the table for the president to sign. You may actually save money. We're willing to increase the funding if the policies are there, but we've got to actually get the policies addressed first.
Congressman, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.